Okay, can we please talk about UFC 260, the biggest, baddest rematch? The heavyweight title's on the line. Stipe Miocic is going to be rematching with Francis Ngannou tonight. I can't wait for this fight. I'm going to be looking at the MMA news, just a quick roundup, about 20 minutes or so, and looking at some my favourite trolls of the week, just memes basically in these UFC groups that I find entertaining. But first of all, you all want to see just how badly all of my bets went last weekend. So let's get into those. Now, I had last week's show was called "A Void is Better Than a Loss," and I still wholeheartedly believe that. And I was up £1.34 by the end of the night because of one of my voids. Because I did have, I had a side bet, a treble on Brunson winning and Tai Tuivasa winning. Obviously, my bet on Tai Tuivasa going to a decision was ludicrous because the man has, I think all of his wins have come by first round knockout, and I only looked at that after I placed the bet. Obviously, because I'm a moron. And yeah, so that was never going to happen. I did have a side bet on Hunsucker by knockout just because it was 11-1. But wow, how good did Tai Tuivasa look? He just smashed that dude. But yeah, but he did get the win. And it went together in a double in the end because my bet on Gillespie, well, I think I was betting against Gillespie because he just looks like a heroin addict. I don't know, I just couldn't see it. I couldn't picture him winning. So I did bet against him. But that fight was void anyway because it didn't happen. And a void is better than a loss because it took my treble down to a double, which put me up to the tune of like £1.34 because I am a big roller. I'm a high roller, as they would say in Vegas. But yeah, so that was my bets from last week. Last week, obviously, like I said, the Tai Tuivasa looked absolutely outstanding. And Derek Brunson, he also looked very good. I mean, I thought Derek Brunson was going to win that fight. I thought that he might find the stoppage, but he didn't find the stoppage in the end. But he still looked like completely dominant the whole way through. I don't know why he was like necessarily coming in as an underdog in that one because it seemed obvious to me that was the way that fight was going to go down. So yeah, good for Brunson. I think his call out of Costa after that as well was a pretty good shout. Kevin Holland, he's got some work to do, man. I mean, I thought that Kevin Holland, if I'm honest, if I was his coach, I would be really quite annoyed because it was disrespectful. The way he was behaving was disrespectful to his coaches because he wasn't listening to his coaches at all. He was just too busy trying to talk to Khabib, who was at ringside. Do you know what I mean? Like trying to get him to give him some wrestling advice. If I was his coach, I'd say, look, piss off to AKA then. You don't want to be here. If you won't listen, if you don't respect our coaching staff here, that is fine. That is your prerogative. But I think it'd be best if you went to AKA. Maybe then Khabib will corner you. And I believe that is what he's done. I'm not certain, but I have seen rumblings that Kevin Holland is now going over to AKA to go and train. So yeah, good for him, man. He clearly needs to shore up his wrestling defense because we know that he's a beast on the feet and we know that he's got some real talent. But if he is that bad at stopping takedowns and cannot keep the fight on the feet, then his ceiling is limited, isn't it? So yeah, good for him if he goes to AKA. But I did feel bad for his coaches because I felt like they were trying to give him some advice to get him away back into the fight, and he was just completely ignoring them because he was too busy playing silly buggers. Hopefully, like I said, I like a bit of trash talk, but trash talking whilst you're cruising to a clear loss is just silly. Do you know what I mean? The way he kind of almost celebrated at the end, he put his hands up. So, oh no, just playing. It's like, yeah, no, but dude, you're being a clown. Like, this is stupid. Like, I think even Derek Brunson found it a bit uncomfortable. It's just like, what is this dude playing at? But oh no, either way, look, Kevin Holland, I enjoy watching him fight and I enjoy his trash talk and everything like that. But you do need to win. And you didn't. So, moving on. Let's have a look at the news. Kelvin Gastelum versus Robert Whittaker. I didn't mention this last week because they hadn't actually confirmed they proposed the fight, but it hadn't been signed. It's now been signed. Obviously, Paulo Costa got drunk again. He was too hungover, so he decided he didn't want to fight Robert Whittaker, which is fair enough. I wouldn't want to fight him on a hangover either. Don't forget that Sober Costa is undefeated. Hashtag Sober Costa undefeated. Gastelum is stepping in. Now that is an excellent fight. They were meant to fight a while back. For the title, I think. But Robert Whittaker, he had some sort of emergency surgery. It was really bad. So, yeah, it'll be really fun to see those guys match up, actually. I think that style-wise, that should be a really terrific fight because both of them are absolutely game. Both of them have got decent... Both of them are just very good all-round fighters. Neither of them have any glaring weaknesses. Do you know what I mean? I just feel like they're both very durable. They're both decent at wrestling. They're both decent at striking, and that kind of equates to just an excellent matchup. And I'm really looking forward to seeing it because I just think it's going to be a war. Kelvin Gastelum's no stranger to a war, and neither is Robert Whittaker. Just look at his fights with Yoel Romero. Do you know what I mean? Both of those guys are as game as it gets in the middleweight division, and yeah, that'll be a really, really fun scrap. And okay, so. Big news, Miocic Tate is back. Miocic Tate has got a fight lined up. I forget the name of her opponent. It's somebody that I'm not super familiar with, but that's a decent fight to come back to. She's also said that she believes that she has the skill set to actually beat Amanda Nunes. No, you don't. Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega is off. There's been an outbreak of COVID at City Kickboxing, apparently. And... yeah, hopefully they'll rematch that one soon because the thing is, with the kind of protocols in New Zealand, I don't think Volkanovski has gone home yet. I don't think he's headed home because he would have to be in like isolation for like 6 weeks or something like that. See what Dan Hooker's had to kind of go through. Like he's always just going back, sitting in this quarantined like community for 6 weeks before he can go and see his family and that again. I think it would make more sense for Volkanovski to stay in Vegas until it depends how bad he's got COVID. I think he tested positive. I don't think he's had any symptoms that I'm aware of. I certainly haven't seen anything indicating that. So look, if all he's got is just he's tested positive for it, if he can just keep training, get through, and hopefully he's not as ill as some people get, then they could rebook that for a few weeks' time because it would make more sense, I think, than him flying all the way back to New Zealand just to quarantine for 6 weeks and then have another camp. And it's just going to delay the fight too much. So I think that there's a decent chance we see that fight rematched sooner than we think. I think it could be as little as 3 weeks' time. They'll just pop it onto an event in Vegas or maybe even just ship them over onto the Jacksonville card. You never know. You know what I mean? But I think that makes more sense time-wise than spending a lot of time getting the champion back to New Zealand to quarantine and piss about. It's a real shame because I was looking forward to that fight. And I've already covered it slightly, but I think Brunson versus Costa is next. They've got to make that fight. Costa needs an opponent that he can, I think that Brunson batters Costa, if I'm totally honest. I really do. I think that Costa was vastly overinflated for who he was, for who he'd beaten. Like, what his biggest accomplishment was going to like a really close fight with Yoel Romero. I mean, it was so close that it was at the end of it, you didn't know whose hand was getting raised. And to be fair, it wouldn't have been like a robbery either way. If Yoel had won that fight, I think people would have said fair enough. It was that close to a fight. Other than that, who's he beaten? Johnny Hendricks? Uriah Hall? Do you know what I mean? He hasn't really. When you look at the competition he's faced, it's not really the super highest level. So when he came in against Israel Adesanya, I was like, no, he's not beating Israel Adesanya. Like, nowhere close. And obviously he didn't. And I do feel like, I don't know, Costa's a weird guy, man. He's come out with all those weird excuses, how he was drunk before the fight. If you didn't know that downing a couple of bottles of wine before your middleweight title fight with the best middleweight on the planet right now, if you didn't know that that was going to be a bad idea, I question your intelligence. I really do. That's worrying. It's alarm bells. But he's looking for any reason that he lost that fight. He has to. I think for his, and I don't know. For me, it feels like if when fighters can't accept a loss like that, I feel like it's slightly worrying because it says something about their mental strength. You know, if they need to be undefeated, like at the end of the day, everyone can be beaten. You know, and I know it's tough to accept that, but you have to. If you got beaten, you have to accept that. I'm not looking at you, Sean O'Malley. Honestly, I'm not. It might seem like it because of all the shenanigans, but I'm not. You know, Sean O'Malley is undefeated. So, like Sean O'Malley with all of his leg nerves intact, undefeated. Just saying. But yeah, so yeah, Brunson versus Costa. Surely they've got to do that next. I hope they match him up sooner rather than later because Costa needs to get back in there. He needs to get his confidence back because he has got potential. I'm not saying he hasn't got potential, but I'm just saying that he got rushed into that title fight too quick, in my opinion. And ESPN have come out with their bloody Mount Rushmore, haven't they? Look at that. They've got Stipe Miocic on there. 100% agree. Cain Velasquez, somewhat agree. You know, Daniel Cormier, somewhat agree. Fedor Emelianenko, I don't agree. I don't agree that Fedor Emelianenko should be on the ESPN Mount Rushmore. And also, and just to elaborate on that, is because I think that a prerequisite to be on the Mount Rushmore of the heavyweight MMA scene, you have to have held the UFC heavyweight title. That is my opinion. That is my take on it. Look, the UFC is the biggest and best organisation in the world of mixed martial arts. That's a fact. I'm not saying anything too outlandish there, right? And I think if you're going to be on the Mount Rushmore, like i.e. like in terms of accolades, because the Mount Rushmore, it's in terms of accolades, isn't it? What have you done accolade-wise? Who is the best accolade-wise? If you haven't got a UFC heavyweight title next to your name, then you aren't on there. It's as simple as that. At the end of the day, Fedor Emelianenko went 36 fights unbeaten against, like, he fought some monsters in Pride, don't get me wrong. He did fight some absolute beasts in Pride, but he also fought a lot of absolute tin cans that you would not be able to name off the top of your head a lot of the people that he fought in Pride. Do you know what I mean? Like, outside of, like, Nogueira, Kevin Randleman, you know, Mirko Krokop, you know, Igor Vashchanchin. You know, outside of those guys, I don't think he even fought Igor, if I'm honest. But either way, outside of those guys, like, you wouldn't be able to remember, you wouldn't remember off the top of your head who he fought in Pride, right? And Pride, let's be honest, they were playing fast and loose with a lot of drugs. And people always say, yeah, but Fedor always did it clean. Look at him in his Pride days. He was jacked. He was a big boy. And if you're telling me that he was fighting in an organisation that almost encouraged taking steroids whilst coming from a country that has been proven to have a statewide sponsored doping program, and you're telling me that he went on a 36 fight unbeaten streak and he was 100% that he was clean, I call bullshit on that. I'm not saying he never failed a test. He never failed a test. So but I still think, I don't know, there are a couple of red flags there. Come on, man, connect the dots. Do you know, as soon as he left those organisations and they started doing even any slight drug testing over in America, he was getting tapped out by Fabricio Verdum. He was getting beaten by Dan Henderson. Do you know what I mean? It's not like his air of invincibility transferred over. You know, again, connect the dots. But Fedor Emelianenko is not on my Mount Rushmore. He just is not there. He didn't go over to the UFC. He didn't fight the best competition. He is not up there. Randy Couture should 100% be up there. Why is Randy Couture not included on that list there? Right? And DC and Kane both are. The one guy started arguing, well, you know, DC and Kane are just way better than Randy Couture. It's like, well, not really, because Randy Couture held the heavyweight title as many times as both of those two combined. So how do they make it onto the Mount Rushmore and Randy Couture doesn't? Randy Couture has only had the most title fights in UFC history. Oh, that's it. You know, he's a 6-time UFC champion. You know, 3 times at light heavyweight, 3 times at heavyweight, I believe. Most title fights in UFC history. Do you know, you look at all his wrestling accolades, he's like a 3-time Olympic alternate or something like that, 2-time Olympic alternate. Like, he's won the Pan Am, he's finished second in the Pan America Games, all his wrestling accolades as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like, But it's mostly his UFC records that perplex me. I was like, how is he not up there and you put DC in there? And people are like, yeah, but DC did a lot of work at light heavyweight as well. It's like, yeah, but Randy held the belt more times at light heavyweight than DC did as well. So what? How do you put DC in there and you exclude Randy Couture? Now, I'm not shitting on DC. DC is awesome and I absolutely love him. Do you know what I mean? Great fighter. But accolade-wise, like, he just doesn't have the same accolades that are equal to Randy Couture. He just doesn't. So how you leave Randy Couture off that list is beyond me. Anyway, moving on. We've got Troll of the Week this week. No, obviously, we've seen a lot of these memes that are centred around like Francis Ngannou because he is the subject of discussion this week. Dana White, if Francis wins on Saturday. Bing! There you go. He's in his dashiki. He looks fantastic. I think that's a great look. I really do. I mean, I think that Dana White should really consider it. And Dana White is explaining here that Francis's power is that classic meme of that guy just like talking to that girl's ear while she just looks like, oh my god, I couldn't care less about whatever bullshit you're talking about. That's me whenever I hear that Francis Ngannou hits with the same power of a Ford Escort travelling top speed. No, I mean, okay, right. If you're talking in like power, like per square inch, whatever, right? But Francis Ngannou isn't punching a deer and then the deer's going to explode. Is he? Do you know what I mean? It's a bit of a kind of, it's a weird kind of like metric to measure it against. Like at the end of the day, right? I would take my chances with a punch off Francis Ngannou because I don't think it would kill me. I mean, maybe it would, but I don't think it would kill me, right? But if you said, okay, I've got two options for you. Either I am going to drive this Ford Escort at 100, I think it's like top speed is like 113 miles an hour. So I'm going to drive this Escort until it hits 113 miles an hour. I'm going to drive it into you and run you over. Or Francis Ngannou is going to punch you one time. I would take the Francis Ngannou punch every day. All day, every day. It's a weird kind of thing. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, that power didn't mean shit in the first fight against Stipe, did it? Did it? No, it didn't. But anyway. Here's what Francis has been doing in preparation for wrestling against Stipe. He has been wrestling a bunch of children, apparently. Good for you, Francis. Never change, buddy. Hey, hey, at least he's working on his grappling. That is definitely a prerequisite for tonight's main event. He needs to do that. And one thing, another troll that I would like to quickly note that I just thought was really, it was more of a comment that I found was absolutely hilarious, right? Basically somebody posted, I couldn't find the comment or the post, but I did see it. Somebody posted, okay, so how much would somebody have to pay you to have sex with Chris Cyborg? And everyone's like, right, no, they have to pay me and whatever. And then this one guy just commented, pure gold, just said, I would pay upwards of $2,000. Fantastic. He beat me to it. I was going to say something very similar, but yeah, it's no, fair play to that man. Okay, so right, let's move on to these fights this week because there are some brilliant fights on this card, not least the main event, the baddest men on the planet squaring off. It's going to be really fun, but I want to start at light heavyweight. I think this is on the prelims. Modestus Bakauskas. I really liked it. I saw him fight. He fought on Fight Island, and I think he got beaten. But to be fair, both him and his opponents, their last loss is to Jimmy Crute. No shame in there, because Jimmy Crute is absolutely legit. But basically, Bakauskas is taking on Michael Oleksiejczuk. Olek. I'm gonna call him Olek. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. That is too many Zs. Like, I need to hear Bruce Buffer announce it first, and I didn't go back and watch that fight. But either way, I do think Bakauskas has this one, purely because I think both these guys are pretty decent kickboxers. Because I mean, like Olek, he's got 10 knockouts. You've got Bakauskas, I think he's got 8 knockouts on his record. They both do like to stand. Olek, he's probably going to be looking for a takedown here, I would have thought, because I don't think he'll get the better of the stand-up. Bakauskas just looks very slick standing up, very, very slick, and he has a decent 4-inch reach advantage. He is taller. He's got the leg reach as well. I do think that in a stand-up fight, that Bakauskas is going to pick him apart. Now, Bakauskas is coming in as a slight underdog in this one, or at least he was when I placed my bet yesterday. Let's have a look at the current odds. Right, so, because unfortunately you can only bet, yeah, here we go. So, yeah, Bakauskas is a 2.38 underdog. His opponent coming in 1.57, which is fine. I've gone for, I think, I like the knockout here. I do think that Bakauskas, with the reach and with how slick his striking is, because like I said, Oleksiejczuk, I think he's gonna try and look for a takedown, because he has looked for takedowns before. He has got submissions on his record. Now, Bakauskas has a 100% takedown defense record. He's never been taken down, so I don't think that he's going to get taken down in this fight. I think standing, this one goes to Bakauskas all day. I think that he finds the knockout. So that's 4.33. So that has been that was added to my bet slip, because I've already placed my bets this time, because I wanted to get them placed before the odds started coming in. So I'll tell you what I've got on those. But either way, I would be going for the TKO knockout for Modestus in that one. So the next one I'm looking at is Sean O'Malley versus Thomas Almeida. You know, it's always fun seeing Sean O'Malley in there. He's a polarising figure. You either hate his guts or you think he's like the next best. He's the next big thing. You know, he might be both. So, I mean, O'Malley is undefeated, don't forget, as long as his leg nerves hold up. So, I love that that's the thing, like, people either hate his attitude or they love it. They either love the fact that he's like, you know, he's got his confidence, or they're like, yeah, but he's kind of delusional. I lean towards delusional. So at the end of the day, dude, you got kicked in the leg, which compromised your leg, and then you got finished. It wasn't like a freak accident. Like, you know, it's short. Like, Vera threw that kick with intent to damage your leg. He did, and then he finished you. That's what happened. Do you know what I mean? So you can't say that, well, no, that doesn't count as a loss because it was a freak accident. It's like, not really, dude. Not really. But all that aside, I think that O'Malley should win this fight. They've thrown Almeida to him. Like, Almeida's coming off of like 3 losses in a row, I think, something like that. But it's like Jimmy Rivera and you know, Cody Garbrandt beat him. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but either way, he's coming off of, it's either 2 or 3 losses on the bounce. And I know that Rivera was definitely one of them. But in any event, what I'm trying to say is that Almeida has struggled against top-level competition. Although, on the flip side, you could say that O'Malley has struggled against, you know, higher-level competition. They put him against Vera. He didn't get his hand raised. He got knocked out. He got finished. So, you know, but I mean, Almeida is a huge underdog in this one. Just huge. Oh, I think, I don't know, it's rightly so. Because I'm definitely taking, I just think that when you looked at him on the scales, that O'Malley just looked a lot big. He looked so much bigger. That's why he is coming as the 1.30 favourite. And 3.50 for Almeida. I mean, as an underdog, look, at the end of the day, O'Malley, like so far in his career, every time he's gone up in competition, which is once, against Vera, he came unstuck. Those are the facts. So maybe a plus 350 on Thomas Almeida. You know, I've seen stranger things happen than Thomas Almeida beating Sean O'Malley. That's not the bet I'm personally going with. I'm going with O'Malley by TKO knockout. I do think that over 3 rounds, that O'Malley's striking is really good. All jokes aside, all shit that I give O'Malley, he is fucking good, man. He is so good. Just so slick. His striking is just, it is a really, really high level. I do think he finds the knockout here. And 2.38, that's not bad, considering I think it's probably the most likely outcome. I really do. So 2.38 on that one. I'm going with Sugar Sean O'Malley to get himself back into the win column. That is my bet on that one. So next up, we've got the co-main event. Co-main event, Vicente Luque taking on Tyrone Woodley, because obviously they lost the co-main event, which was, you know, Ortega versus Volkanovski. But yeah, I'll be honest, like, before I saw the weigh-ins, I placed like an accumulator where I included Woodley to win. I now take that back, because, I mean, Woodley looked tiny on the scales. Like, he looked drawn out, he looked thin. He didn't look like normal, like, Woodley. He really didn't. And Man, Vicente Luque is a big boy, isn't he? Good God, they look like they are in different weight classes. I think this is going to be a massacre, guys. I mean, thing is like, obviously Woodley is a huge, huge underdog. And yeah, for good reason. Just, yeah, it on the scales, it looked. I mean, Woodley, he's not looked good, and recently Woodley has not looked good at all. At one time, Woodley was the best. Not for some time though. You know, he's got Vicente Luque coming in at 1.40, Woodley the 3.0 outsider. Yeah, I don't see it going any other way than Vicente Luque getting the finish. I think he finds a finish either by submission or by knockout. That's why I do like the double chance on this one. Vicente Luque, 2K or submission, plus 250. I'll take that. I'll take that all day. I'll add that to my bet slip because I do not see Tyron Woodley getting through this fight without getting finished by Vicente Luque, who is just an absolute monster of a man. When they squared off together, I was like, whoa, holy shit, that's crazy. Do you know what I mean? Like, because Woodley was always like shorter, but he was thick, he was stocky. I don't know, maybe it was just because he just finished cutting weight, but damn, like he looked drawn out, he looked small, he looked kind of almost disinterested as well, and he's looked like that in his last few fights, and it's always added up to his opponents having a really good night. So yeah, I would say bet the house on Vicente Luque here. That's my pick, Vicente Luque to get the finish. TKO, knockout or submission, plus 250. Let's move on to the main event of the evening. The two baddest men on the planet right now. Stipe Miocic still not getting respect. He's still not getting respect for the bookies. Right? He's coming in as the underdog here. I'll put the odds up on screen. These are the current ones from this morning. So they were right. As of about 2 o'clock this afternoon, these odds are completely accurate. So Miocic is the 210 underdog, and Francis Ngannou is coming in as a 1.73 favourite. And right now, don't get me wrong. Right, people seem to think that I'm stupid or something because they keep kind of going into just saying that. Well, of course, Francis is the favourite. No, he's knocked out his last 4 opponents. It's like, look, I get why you would make him the favourite. I do, but I also don't, because tell me, what has Francis done differently to the build-up of the first fight? What's he done differently? He was coming off 4 early knockouts before they fought the first time, right? He's done nothing different, nothing. And I just think that Stipe, he has the kryptonite for Francis's style because he makes him miss. You watch that first fight, right? That first fight, Stipe Miocic tired him out, not with the wrestling. He was already tired, and the wrestling was a byproduct of the tiredness. But it was because Stipe's head movement is vastly underrated. Stipe's head movement is so good. You watch that first fight again. There's a fight, and in the first round, like Stipe, like he got clipped with a couple of shots, and Stipe's got a hell of a chin because like those shots should have probably put him out. But the ones that really hurt Francis were the ones where he missed by an absolute country mile because his striking is predictable. Like Dan Hardy does a much better breakdown of it than I do. I'm going to actually put a little kind of note in here. Just click on this link. Dan Hardy's breakdown is absolutely fantastic. He does a much better job explaining it than me. I'll do the dumbed down version. But I'd even noticed a couple of the things that he pointed out just because that it is kind of obvious. When you watch the first fight again and you watch all of Francis's fights, he strikes the same way. Right, left, right. Do you know what I mean? Just like literally left, right, left. I apologise for getting my left and right mixed up. Fucking idiot. Either way, yeah. It's like left, right, left. That's how it goes in. He always does it the same way, and he loads up so much power on those punches, right? You don't need all of Francis' power to knock somebody out. Like, Stipe has more than enough power to knock people out, but he uses his strikes effectively. He goes for precision, and he's a big man himself. He's still 230 pounds. He's a big guy, right? But he doesn't really have, like, the wind-up on his punches. Like, you don't need to swing from back here to knock someone out, especially Francis Ngannou's short shots will do the job. I do think that if any shot catches Stipe tonight, it's going to be the uppercut. But I don't think even that does it. I don't think that he gets... my pick for this one is Stipe Miocic is going to do the same thing that he did the last time. I think he's going to kind of make Francis look a bit silly. I think he's going to dance around him. He's going to use his head movement. His head movement is so good. It's so vastly underrated. It really is. Because, again, you watch the first fight and he's just getting out of the way of everything. And it's those shots that miss. Those are the ones that tired Francis out. They made him exhausted. Because he's got to now pull all that power back. Do you know what I mean? He misses and he's got to pull all of it back and reset. And even halfway through the first round, like you saw, Francis was clearly gassed. And all of the training footage, show me where Francis has addressed these issues. Show me, right, in any of his fights. People keep on pointing, oh, but he's just, he's won his last 4 fights by, by knockout, so obviously he's going to win this one. No, not necessarily, because he hasn't addressed any of the issues that actually plagued him in the first fight. Yes, there's a chance that he just knocks Stipe out. There's always that chance with Francis Ngannou, but Stipe avoided that the first time. I don't see why there's any reason that he doesn't avoid it the second time. And people keep pointing to the people that he's beaten. It's like, look, not being funny, but who hasn't knocked out Junior Dos Santos lately? With respect to Junior, and obviously he knocked out Curtis Blades, but that's I think that's mainly because in his head he's he was getting his mojo back. He'd already beaten Curtis Blades, so he's already kind of in a good mental space. Because in the fight against Lewis, he was tentative, and he was tentative because he remembered what it felt like to be so exhausted that he probably felt like he might die. Against Stipe didn't finish him in the first fight, but he didn't need to, right? Stipe put him in a position where he had, that was probably worse than being finished, to be fair. Because if you've ever been so exhausted that you really think you're like, oh God, I can't do anything. You're so tired, you can't do it. I've been there. Do you know what I mean? I'm no pro athlete, but I've done some rolling in the past, and I know what it's like to feel so tired that you feel like you're drowning. Right? You feel like you're actually drowning. And that is a horrible feeling. Now, Francis has managed to put some distance between that feeling, and he's managed to get back to winning again. He didn't associate Curtis Blades with that feeling, so he was able to just go out and start throwing. The problem, when in the Derek Lewis fight, the reason he didn't throw wasn't because he was afraid of Derek Lewis's power. He was afraid of feeling like he did when he fought Stipe Miocic. That was what was playing on his mind. And the thing is, he's managed to put some distance between that feeling and himself again now. However, he has never been staring across from the man that did it to him the first time. And there is a good chance that he's going to look into Stipe's eyes when they're across from each other, and he's going to be tentative. I don't think that Francis is going to come out swinging wildly in the first round like he has done recently. I think if Francis gets the knockout, I think the second round is the better bet, because I think that Francis is going to be very, very... He's going to have PTSD flashbacks of shit, I was drowning the last time I had to fight this guy. I was drowning. I don't want to be in that position again, and that will stop him from throwing, right? Now, whether that works to his advantage or not, that remains to be seen. That's why we love these fights, because as fun as it is to speculate beforehand, no one really knows how it's going to go down, I just think that there's a good chance that Stipe does the exact same thing to him again. But I think that maybe Stipe even looks a little better. I think that arguably Stipe's striking has gotten better. You look at those body shots that he was landing against Cormier, they were absolute money. And what do body shots do? They put money in the bank, They put money in the bank for later on. They take the fight out of your opponent, and literally that's what Stipe did in the first fight. He sucked the fight out of Francis Ngannou. He just sapped his will to keep going. He broke him. No, it's similar to what Randy Couture used to do to people. Look at what Randy Couture did to Vitor Belfort. He sapped the will to fight out of him, and Stipe is going to do the same thing, I believe, in this fight. I'm happy that Stipe is coming in as an underdog, because that's the man that I was going to bet on. But I do think it's at a certain point, it's who the hell does Stipe have to beat to come in as a favourite? Jesus Christ, guys. And I just don't see that Francis has done anything in his training. I've watched all the embeddeds, I've watched all of that, and I don't see anything in Francis's training that sees that he's really addressed the problems that plagued him in the first fight. He's still got that guy with the dreadlocks who's his yes man, who just literally, all he talks about is how great Francis is. And every time I see Francis in training footage, he looks disinterested, he looks tired as well. Every piece of training footage I've seen, Francis looks exhausted. And yet, okay, you see him doing get-ups from from the floor, like with wrestlers on top of him. But who are these wrestlers? They look like out-of-work doormen from Vegas. Obviously, they don't have anything to do right now because Vegas is shut down. But what I'm saying is that I question, who are these wrestlers? Who are they? I'd like to know what their credentials are. Are their credentials equal or better than Stipe's? Because if you're not getting up consistently from wrestlers who are as good or better than Stipe Miocic, then you are not training correctly for this fight. And I don't think he is. I think that he's got a lot of people around him that are yes men, that are kind of getting caught up in the glitz and the glamour of Francis Ngannou. Because Francis Ngannou is weird, right? People would say that maybe Stipe will have his Rocky IV moment where he's just too, like, he's got all the money now and he's champion, he's not training the same way. Like, Stipe is training the exact same way. He has got his nose to the grindstone. He's a grinder. Francis Ngannou is the one that's changed, like, all of his training, like where he trains, not necessarily how he trains, but where he trains. He's got all these fancy nutritionists now. He's got people, prodding him and probing him, putting the science behind everything. Because and it's almost like the Ivan Drago thing, but it's like, I don't think that is the way to beat Stipe Miocic. And looking at the way he kind of, every single bit of training I see, he's throwing, but he's like taking a big breath to reset because he's so big that he requires so much oxygen that after the first half a round, if he's throwing with intent to knock people out, if he doesn't knock them out, which is likely, don't get me wrong, if he, like Francis Ngannou's throwing those big fucking hammers around, he can knock people out, no doubt. But I just think that Stipe Miocic, his boxing is actually really underrated. If you look at all of his fights, his head movement is so good. Like, he's always just out of the way, pivot, out of the way, pivot. And he makes people miss. And that is kryptonite for Francis Ngannou, because when he misses, he gets tired. And when he gets tired, he gives up. That's the important thing to note as well. Francis Ngannou gave up in that first fight. He might not have submitted, but he was in a place that he didn't want to be, and he just wanted out of there. He looked so exhausted, and I feel like that mentally, that's going to play on Francis, right? If he doesn't get the finish like relatively early, he's going to be in real trouble, and he knows that as well. And so, for me, I am right. I'm going with Stipe Miocic in this one, right? He's plus, well, actually, I've got 550 on the decision. I think, the decision for Stipe Miocic is one of the most likely things to happen, because once he gets into those dominant positions, there is no reason for him to take risks, right? It wouldn't surprise me to see a round 4 TKO from Stipe as well. The round 4 TKO for Stipe is... here we go. So, win by TKO... Where is it? Method and round. Round and method. There we go. So, round and method. You got plus 17 there for Stipe for a round 4 TKO KO stoppage. So I have added that to a bet slip. I'll put a quid on that. That's well worth a go. But my pick for this one is Stipe Miocic by decision. That's what I think is likely to happen, because I just don't see any evidence that Francis is like, people will point and say, but he beat Cain Velasquez. Cain Velasquez is one of the best wrestlers to ever do it in the UFC heavyweight division. Yeah, but was he fighting off takedowns for 5 rounds? No. Fucking, to be fair, Cain blew out his ACL and then got knocked out. And I'm not taking anything away from Francis there, but the way he won those fights, all of those fights that he's won, the way he won them doesn't show that he has addressed any of the issues that plagued him in the first fight. Yes, it's extremely possible that Francis can get the knockout. That's always possible with Francis Ngannou. I just think it's more possible that Stipe's even come in a little bit lighter this time as well. I don't think that's a conscious decision. I think that Stipe doesn't really pay that much attention to his weight. But I do think that the fact he was lighter in the first fight really played to his advantage because he was so much quicker. He was quicker, he was lighter, and Francis has come in at 263, which is roughly the same as what it came in last time. So he hasn't dropped any weight. He's done nothing differently. So if you're doing the same thing, why are you expecting a different result? Would be my question. And I don't think it will be a different result. Stipe Miocic by decision. But let's get on to some of my... Because obviously I'm not going to... I don't like betting straight up. I have put a couple of straight up bets here and there. But they're not the fun ones, right? So here's the one that I placed before seeing Vicente Luque... No, before seeing... Yeah, Vicente Luque and Daniel... before seeing Luque and Woodley actually square up. I put on a treble, Stipe Miocic fight outright, Sean O'Malley fight outright, and Tyron Woodley fight outright. Okay, that is plus 35. No, it's not. It's plus 8. Plus 8.06. So I put put a fiver on that. Oh no, wait, that was my free bet. That's fine. Excellent. It's all good. It's all good. Don't worry. It's my free bet. That's not even real money. I'm glad that's not real money because I have no faith in Tyron Woodley beating Vicente Luque whatsoever. Now, I've got a couple of other bets on, like in and around. So I do have the treble on here, which is Stipe Miocic by decision, and then you've got Vicente Luque by finish, so TKO or submission, double chance, and Sean O'Malley by knockout or TKO. That one is 65.3, yeah, 32.66. So you've got 30, so roughly, yeah, 30 odd to 1. That's not bad for considering those three. I think the most likely things to happen in those fights. So you know. MMA is just so unpredictable, you just never know. So it's like, well, the reason it's a terrible bet is because, you know, one of those things will probably let me down. The one that I do have some faith in, though, it's only 13.75, so roughly, you know, 12 to 1, circa, that kind of thing. You've got Vicente Luque by double chance by TKO or submission, and Stipe Miocic by decision. I like that bet. That bet, I'm going to say, is not terrible. That bet is a good bet. But don't put that bet on my account because all gambling is for absolute mugs, myself included. I am the muggiest of mugs. But I've also taken my my treble that I put on with, you know, O'Malley and Luque and Stipe. I added Modestus Bakauskas to that by TKO or knockout, and that pushes that quadruple up to 1.46.95, which is circa 145 to 1, which is a terrible bet, but I am all over that. That is worth a couple of quid because, look, actually, all those four things, I think those are the most likely outcomes in all of those fights. When you put them all together, one of them is bound to fall out. But hey, it's worth rolling the dice. That's what I like to do. Do you know what I mean? I like to keep those odds long, baby. It's just, yeah, it's always worth having a bit of fun on these. I've also put like single bets on like O'Malley by knockout, Luque by double chance, Stipe Miocic by decision. I've already gone through and I do like those bets. I've got a couple of singles on as well. Francis Ngannou. Oh, I have put some side action on Francis Ngannou. Ngannou in under 60 seconds is plus 15s. So you've got like 14 to 1 on that. That's not a bad shout because I think, you know, at the end of the day, if he goes out swinging, then he catches him, he can put anyone to sleep. I'm not saying that that's not a possibility, but I do think if Ngannou is going to win by knockout, I do think it's more than likely going to be the second round because I do think he comes out tentative in the first round for the reasons that I alluded to earlier. So a second round stoppage by TKO KO for Ngannou is plus 6.50. So yeah, I'm having a few quid on that. Why not? Do you know what I mean? I think that if Ngannou does get the knockout, I do think it comes in the second round, not in the first. And I've also got Stipe plus 17, so circa 16 to 1 to get the TKO knockout in round number 4, because I think that by that point, Francis Ngannou is going to be absolutely exhausted. He's going to be gasping for air and he's going to be having a pretty miserable time. So that brings us to, and I'm going to be enjoying the hell out of these fights. Now, if you want to contact me ever on social media, my social media things are here. If you see a troll of the week that you think I would find hilarious, I love seeing them. By all means, tag me in them on Facebook or on Instagram or on Twitter, and obviously my email is there if you ever want to get in touch. And also, if you enjoy this content, please just give me a like and give me a subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. I am going to enjoy the hell out of watching two of the biggest, baddest men on the planet square off tonight at UFC 260. Cannot wait for this one. Absolutely buzzing. But until next week, keep those odds long and those bets terrible.